Ladies and gentlemen, if you're born in America and you're struggling right now, I want you to hear me loud and clear. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're too old. It's because you were never told the one rule that built everything you see around you. And I only discovered it after leaving. This isn't motivation. This is a reset. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how I quietly trained myself to outperform almost everyone without talent, without charm, just by doing what Canada taught me. But first, let me ask you, what city are you watching this from right now? Go ahead and tell me in the comments below. I want to know where the strongest people in America are still listening from. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps more people like you find this video. You see, people think success is about being born into the right family, or starting a tech company, or knowing someone. It's not. That's not how I built anything that mattered. I'll tell you the truth. I've sat across from people who had $20 million in their bank accounts and still felt like failures. And I've spoken with mechanics in Chicago who work 10-hour shifts and go home fulfilled. So let me ask you, would you rather have meaning or money? Because the right answer actually gives you both. When I first moved to Canada, before Tesla, before PayPal, before SpaceX, I didn't know anyone. I had no money. I wasn't a genius. I just knew one thing. If I didn't work like my life depended on it, nothing would change. And Canadians especially, the ones in rural cities, live like that every single day. Not because they're scared, but because they believe something we've forgotten. In America, you don't wait for opportunity. You work until it can't ignore you. I've seen it happening here in America. A slow softness, a belief that retirement means stopping, that turning 60 means you can't change, that life after 50 is meant for watching, not building. Let me say this as clearly as I can. That's a lie. I've hired people in their 60s to work on some of the most demanding problems in aerospace. Do you think I cared about their age? Number, I cared about one thing. Can they show up, do the work, and solve problems? Most of the time they could do it better than the 25-year-olds. So I want to talk directly to you now. If you are over 50, still breathing, still thinking, still curious, you are not done. You have the one thing young people don't. You have time-earned perspective. So the question isn't can you do it? It's will you return to the ethic that built this country? That's what Canada gave me. A brutal winter, a hard bed, a borrowed coat, and a message that never left my brain. Elon, no one's coming to do it for you. So show up every day, early, tired, grateful. Let me ask you a serious question. What was the last thing you built with your hands, or fixed, without asking for help, or learned even though it felt uncomfortable? Leave your answer in the comments. I want to read them personally because that's the person I'm speaking to. That's the builder inside of you. Now, some people say Elon isn't all that outdated. We have AI now. We have robots. Why talk about work ethic? Because here's the truth. AI might change the world, but discipline will always run. Your ability to control your time, your effort, and your decisions. That's what makes or breaks your future. And for the last 20 years, I've watched the people who got ahead. They weren't the smartest. They weren't the best looking. They weren't even the fastest. They were the most consistent. They made 5 cold calls a day when others made 1. They showed up to the meeting early, even when no one noticed. They read 1 new idea each day instead of scrolling social media. They kept working long after the feeling wore off. So if you're telling yourself, I'm too tired, it's too late, no one cares, then I need to remind you, you are choosing to believe a narrative that benefits no one, not your children, not your community, and definitely not you. By the end of this full video, I'll show you the exact work ethic rule I learned in Canada and how you can build it into your day, no matter your age, background, or experience. Because here's the promise I'm making. If you apply this one mindset, your life will never stay stuck again. Not because you'll be lucky, but because you'll be unignorable. And if you're someone who believes in God like I do, then you know, even in the Bible, it says commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. That doesn't say wait for permission. It says commit. That means take the first step and let the momentum come from faith and effort. There's urgency to this. You don't get back this day. You don't get back this year. So instead of waiting for retirement to find meaning, you start living it now. It doesn't matter if you're 52, 64, or 79. You wake up, you choose the work. You stay faithful to it. And that quiet Canadian ethic, it starts changing your entire American life. Most people lose their entire future in the first 10 minutes of their morning. Not because they don't care, but because no one ever taught them how to structure a day that builds power, confidence, and momentum every single time. Today, I'm going to show you how I did it. Not as a billionaire, but as a young man sweeping a boiler room in Canada when no one knew my name. What you do today might determine how your entire future unfolds. So listen closely. Let me ask you something. How do you start your day? Really, what do the first 90 minutes look like? Because most people wake up and immediately step into reactivity. They check email, they scroll, they react. From the moment their eyes open, their time belongs to everything but themselves. But I learned this in Canada, before Tesla, before PayPal, from blue-collar workers, immigrants, janitors, people most folks overlook. They started early, with a plan, with focus, with grit, not with motivation, with movement, and that made all the difference. I started doing this at 8. I still do it now. It's simple, it's ordinary, but it's unstoppable when repeated. 1. Start before the world wakes up. You don't need to wake up at 4, but start before the noise begins, before the emails, before the television, before anyone asks anything from you. 2. Touch something physical. This is non-negotiable. Whether it's sweeping the floor, washing dishes, stretching, or fixing a loose screw in your home, doing one physical task grounds your mind in ownership. That's what built my work ethic. Not reading success books, but movement, physical clarity. 3. Plan. One hard thing, not 20, just one clear, hard thing that if done today, would move your life forward. That's how the men I saw in Canada lived, and it's what rebuilt my life in America. Now, I want to talk to the audience that's 50 and older. If you're thinking, Elon, I've tried routines, I've lived through hard years, I've earned my rest, I respect that deeply. But let me ask you this, do you still want to grow, or have you already told yourself that your best years are behind you? Because if you're still breathing, you're still building, and that means your habits still matter. When I worked in that Canadian lumber mill, no one noticed if I showed up early. No one rewarded me for pushing the broom faster. But I wasn't working for applause. I was working for a future I could respect. You need that same reason again, not to impress people, not for fame, but to look in the mirror at 7,000 p.m. and say, I built something today, even if that something is just a quiet commitment kept. Let's break the lie right now. You can't change after 50. Wrong. You must change because you've gained the wisdom to know what matters and the courage to let go of what doesn't. So here's how you do it. Reclaim your morning. No phone. Just breath, thought, and motion. Do one useful thing with your hands every day. It doesn't matter how small. End your day with reflection, not distraction. Ask, did I move forward today? That's it. That's how you rebuild momentum quietly, effectively, personally. Tell me in the comments, what's one thing you'll do tomorrow morning to start your day with power? Something simple, something physical, something real. Leave it below. I want to know what your mornings will look like after this. This is important. You're not racing your neighbor. You're not late. You're not behind. You're simply standing at the starting line of a new habit that builds real purpose. The problem is most people never step forward. They wait until they feel ready, but readiness is a lie. You don't wait to feel ready. You move and readiness follows. That's what Canada taught me. That's what America forgot. Let me share something. Years ago, when I was starting SpaceX, I met a man named Carl. He was 64. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a billionaire. He was a janitor, but he came in early every day and stayed late. He told me once, if Elon, I've never owned a company, but every floor I clean, I treat like it's mine. Because how you do the little things is how you'll be trusted with big things. That stuck with me. It wasn't about status. It was about stewardship. That's real work ethic. You don't need a spotlight. You don't need a million followers. You need one thing, a daily ethic that builds your future without needing applause. And the beautiful thing is, once you live that way, you begin to gain something most people never find. Peace. Not comfort, but peace. A calm confidence that says, I showed up, I did my work, and I'm better than I was yesterday. I'll say something that I believe deeply. If you give your day to God, truly committed, without pride, without rushing, you'll begin to see doors open. That effort alone can't explain, because it's not just about work. It's about intentionality, alignment, faith, and motion, working together. There will come a moment when you've done everything right and still feel like nothing's changing. You'll wake up exhausted, even if you slept. You'll wonder why you're working so hard when no one sees it. And right there in that silent, private moment, most people quit. But if you can survive that space, just that one moment, you'll outlast almost everyone. Today, I'll show you how to survive, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. There's something I call the dark hour. It's not midnight. It's not about being dramatic. It's the moment when progress becomes invisible. You're doing everything right, but the results are silent. That's when you begin to ask questions like, am I wasting my time? Did I miss my chance? Does any of this even matter? Sound familiar? I've been there many times, not as Elon Musk, the public figure, but as a man alone, with an uncertain vision, and no applause. And what I've learned is that progress doesn't knock. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly after consistency. If you're listening to this, and you're tired, not just in your body, but in your heart, I need to say this clearly. You are not weak. You're not behind, and you're not too old. You're simply in the middle of the process. And that's the hardest place to be, because in the middle there's no reward yet, just repetition. Here's what to do when that moment hits. 2011 micro win. Most people only celebrate when the bank account changes, or the body transforms, or the job title upgrades. That's backwards. In the beginning, you need to celebrate what others overlook. You resisted quitting. You woke up and tried again. You prayed even when it felt silent. Those are wins. Celebrate them. Write them down. Speak them aloud. They build emotional stamina. Tool 2. Mission over mood. This might be the most important shift you ever make. Your feelings are real, but they're not always right. Never let a passing emotion cancel a permanent mission. There were mornings I didn't want to keep going, but I reminded myself, feelings follow action, not the other way around. Move first. Emotion follows. Tool 3. Anchor yourself to people of faith and grit. Let me tell you something surprising. Even as someone building rockets and running billion-dollar companies, I found my greatest strength in people who live simple, faithful, grounded lives. People who aren't flashy, but are consistent. People who still pray over their families, who still show up early to work even when no one claps. You need those people near you. Call them, watch them, learn from them. They remind you that perseverance doesn't need noise, it just needs roots. Now let me ask you a question, one I hope you'll answer in the comments. What helps you keep going, even when no one sees your effort? Is it your faith, your family, a future goal, a childhood dream? Tell me, because speaking it gives it power. And you're not alone in this. Let me tell you about a man named Jerry. Jerry was a mechanic in Oklahoma, 64 years old, lived on a modest pension. He never made the news, never ran a company, but every day, he opened his garage at 6 out, rain or shine, and he always wore a white cap with the words "Fix what's broken." I asked him once why he still did it at his age, and he said, because if I stop fixing things, I'll forget how to live. That hit me hard, because it wasn't about engines, it was about purpose. He kept going, not for profit, but for presence. If you want to outlast discouragement, you need daily structure, not complex, just faithful. Here's how I keep my mind strong. When I feel stretched, when I remove noise early, no screens, no chaos, just breathing and clarity. 2. I remind myself of purpose daily. Why am I doing this? Who needs me to keep going? 3. I speak truth out loud. I literally say, Elon, you've made it through worse. Keep going. You can do this too. Use your own name. Say your own truth. Words have power, especially when the world is quiet. And if you believe in God like I do, I want you to hear something important. The testing of your faith produces perseverance. James 1:3. That verse isn't just spiritual, it's practical. Sometimes your struggle isn't a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're being strengthened. So keep going, even if it's quiet, even if it hurts, 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 even if it hurts. The real truth is, you only ever have today, this moment, this choice. And the people who move mountains, they move when they don't feel like it. They push when their legs shake. They speak when their voice cracks. That's not weakness. That's what strength really looks like. Some of the greatest people I've ever met didn't build rockets. They didn't own companies. They built one thing, a life they were proud of. Not because it was big, but because it was honest. Because every day, they showed up for their routine, not out of excitement, but out of integrity. Today, I'll show you how to turn the ordinary into something unstoppable. Let me be clear. Most people aren't stuck because of failure. They're stuck because of repetition, of the wrong routines, not bad intentions, just autopilot. They wake up and the day runs them. They react instead of rebuild. And here's the most painful part. They stop believing that anything can actually change. So they tell themselves, it's too late. I'm too tired. This is just how life is now. But that's a lie. You're not stuck. You're just unstructured. And if you change your rhythm, you'll change your reality. When I lived in Canada, in my early years, I noticed something powerful.
People didn't just work hard, they worked faithfully. There was structure in their suffering, and purpose in their pacing. Whether it was a farmer starting his day before the frost, or a welder showing up at the same hour, every single day, they weren't chasing excitement, they were anchored in rhythm, and that rhythm created respect, internally and externally. I want to give you a blueprint. Simple, senior-friendly, life-changing. We'll call it the 4 pillars of purposeful routine. These aren't hacks, they are anchors. Pillar 1. Time discipline. Pick 2 time slots in your day that you own completely. No screens, no noise, no one else's agenda, just you, your thoughts, and a task. For example, 7 to 8 of 10 a.m., stretching, journaling, planning, 8 to 9 of p.m., reflection, prayer, goal checking. This is how you protect your time from drift. Pillar 2. Environment integrity. You don't need a mansion to have peace. You need an environment that honors your energy. Clear one space in your home to be sacred. It could be a corner, a table, a chair, but when you enter that space, your mind should say, here, I build, I think, I grow. Most people live in clutter and wonder why their thoughts are chaotic. Clean space equals clear mind. Pillar 3. Body motion. No, you don't need to run 5 miles, but your body was made to move even lightly. Walk slowly while praying, stretch while listening to an audiobook, fix something in your home that's been broken. This isn't about fitness, it's about staying in motion, so your mind doesn't rot in stillness. Even in my busiest weeks, I find time to move, because when the body stops, so does the mind. Pillar 4. Spiritual anchoring. This one matters most, especially for those over. Your routine needs a spiritual anchor. Not just goals, not just hustle. Start your day with a short prayer, read 1 verse, whisper 1 truth. God, I'm showing up. Use me today. That's not religion, that's alignment, and it's how you stay steady when life shakes you. Let me ask you this. What's one small routine you used to love that you've abandoned? Was it your morning walks? Was it journaling before bed? Was it fixing things around the house? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes returning to an old rhythm unlocks a new future. I once met a woman named Maria, 71 years old. She didn't build anything that made headlines, but she built her life back from grief through routine. Her husband passed, her kids moved out, and she felt like her life had shrunk. Until one day she decided, I will wake up every morning at 6, make tea, read the Bible, and walk to the corner store every day. She did that for years, and she told me something I'll never forget. I may have lost my family's noise, but I never lost my soul's rhythm. That's what routine can give you. Peace and movement, structure and solitude. The older you get, the more dangerous drift becomes, because the world starts telling you, you've earned your rest. Just take it easy now. You've done enough. And yes, rest matters, but a life without meaningful rhythm becomes passive and painful. You were not designed to sit back and fail. You were built to stabilize, anchor, and guide. And that means your habits still matter. Everything I've ever built, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, it all came from invisible days, ordinary days, days where nothing exciting happened. But I showed up anyway. So did my team. So did our routine. Success didn't happen on the big day. It happened through 1,000 small ones. The same is true for you. Your legacy, your influence, your health. It won't come from one breakthrough. It will come from the quiet days you refuse to waste. I believe God designed life in rhythms, day and night, seed and harvest, work and rest. When you honor that rhythm, you move with purpose, not pressure. So every time you feel lost, go back to your structure. It's not just a routine, it's a reminder of who you are. If you've been waiting for the one mindset that changed my life forever, this is it. It's not glamorous, it's not complex, but it's more powerful than talent, luck, or education. This is the exact rule I absorbed while working brutal jobs in Canada, and when I brought it to America, it gave me everything. By the end of this video, you will know the Canadian work ethic secret that made me unstoppable, and you'll be able to apply it starting tonight. Work like no one's coming. Work like no one's coming to fix it, to notice it, or to reward you for it. That's the rule. That's what I saw again and again in the towns of Canada. I saw single mothers show up at 4:30 a.m. to clean buildings without ever being thanked. I saw elderly farmers still mending fences in the freezing wind without applause. I saw people quietly fighting for their families through jobs no one respected, because they understood something most people forget. Your value is built in silence, and your worth is proven by what you do when no one's watching. Why this rule works? Most people live with a silent hope that someone will come rescue them, a mentor, a program, a paycheck, a miracle. But while they wait, years pass, energy fades, confidence slips. They outsource their progress to someone else's timeline. But the Canadians I worked with taught me, it's not their job, it's yours. That's when everything changed. When I first lived this rule I was 8, sleeping on a cousin's floor. No money, no connections, cleaning out a boiler room. There was no glory, no vision board. Just one voice in my head, Elon. No one is coming, so you move, you solve, you show up. That simple mindset got me through long winters, and it followed me into every company I ever built, from PayPal to Tesla, to SpaceX. Not talent, not a break, just the refusal to wait for rescue. How to apply this rule to your life right now. You don't need to move countries. You don't need to start a company. Here's how to live this rule. Starting tonight. Step 1. Identify what you've been waiting on. Ask yourself, what area of my life have I been waiting for someone else to fix? Is it your health, your finances, your home, your purpose? Write it down. Literally call it out. Because the second you name it, you take ownership of it. Step 2. Create a no one's coming action plan. This doesn't mean you never ask for help, but it means you stop depending on it. Choose one thing small, simple, meaningful that you can fix, clean or build this week entirely on your own. Fix that cabinet, make that phone call, update that resume, schedule that checkup, take that walk, not for applause, but because you're the type of person who moves without permission. Step 3. End each day with this question. Ask yourself, before bed, did I show up for my life today, or did I wait? This one question can change everything, because eventually the gap between who you were and who you want to be will shrink, and your future will start trusting you again. Let me tell you why this rule works, especially well for adults and seniors, because you already have discipline, you already know sacrifice, you already know what matters, and now you just need to return to the belief that you can move the needle again. No one's coming, but you're still here, still capable, still willing. That's more than enough. Here's the psychological shift. Most people ask, what should I do? But people who live this rule ask, who must I become? That's the shift. You stop chasing outcomes, and you start reinforcing identity. You're not doing a task. You're becoming the kind of person who gets things done. You know, no matter the weather, no matter the applause, no matter the timeline. That's unshakable power. That's what Canada gave me. Let me leave you with the story. Roy was 77, a widower, lived alone in rural Alberta. Everyone assumed his time was done, until one day he showed up to volunteer at a local build site, twice a week. I asked him, why still do this at your age? And he said, because I spent too many years waiting. Now I show up, for whatever I can still touch, with these hands, and God meets me there every time. Roy didn't need recognition, he needed rhythm, and his reward wasn't status, it was peace. Even Jesus, before he performed miracles, worked in silence as a carpenter, quietly shaping wood, unnoticed by crowds. But he wasn't waiting to be seen, he was building the discipline for what was coming, and that's exactly what this rule is about. Your quiet seasons are not wasted, they're preparation. When you show up for the unseen work, when you sweep the floor, no one notices, when you pray when no one else believes, you are building a life that heaven itself watches and prepares to honor. Because the truth is, no one's coming to fix your body, no one's coming to heal your finances, no one's coming to rewrite your story, but you can, you with your experience, your wisdom, your strength, your source. You're not behind, you're not too late, you simply at the moment of realization, where you stop waiting and start building again. If you've made it this far, I promised you something, at the very beginning, that I would give you the one rule that built the strongest work ethic of my life, that I would show you how to live it, and that I would remind you that your greatest days are not behind you, but ahead, and now you have it. The rule is simple, the power is in your hands. Work like no one's coming, not for applause, not for a miracle, but because your life is still worth rebuilding, one on a day at a time. Before you go to bed, I want you to do one thing. Write down the area of your life where you've been waiting. Then write, this is mine. Now, pin it to your mirror. Put it on your fridge. Look at it every morning. That reminder will anchor you more than any app, calendar, or motivational quotes. Because you didn't just watch a video, you remembered your responsibility, and that changes everything. Now I want you to comment below and complete this sentence. No one's coming, so I will. Will you forgive someone? Will you start walking again? Will you write that book? Will you clean that garage? Will you call your son? Will you return to your faith? Whatever it is, declare it. Because in this moment, you become more than a viewer. You become a builder. This series wasn't about me. It wasn't about business. It was about you, youth person, listening from your living room, maybe doubting if change is still possible. Youth single mother, the retired veteran, the person healing from grief or your wreck. Let me tell you plainly, you're not too old. You're not too broken. You're not too late. You are right on time for a second wind, but no one's kinda hand it to you. You have to stand, pick up your tools, reclaim your habits, and build the life you've been postponing. If this message spoke to you, don't just leave quietly. Like the video so this message reaches someone else who needs. Comment or I will statement below and subscribe, because I continue showing up for you with tools, truth and structure to build the next chapter of your life. You've got more time than you think. You've got more in you than you know, and the world still needs what only you can.